Hey, and welcome to The Office Field Guide. My name's Chris, and I'm reviewing every episode of The Office ever. And today, we are covering C.R.I.M.E.
It's like Farm-Aid, but instead of farms fighting against AIDS, it is us fighting against our own poverty.
C.R.I.M.E. was written by another newcomer for my show, Charlie Grandy, who wrote all of these episodes of The Office and directed everyone's favorite episode, Mrs. California.
Yeah.
C.R.I.M.E. was directed by veteran writer Jen Celotta. She wrote on the show basically since the beginning, and I believe this was her first take at directing anything in general. It seemed now she's moved on completely from writing and is mainly directing and producing. I know that because I know my wife every time I spot her name out in the credits when we watch Cobra Kai or Space Force. Since I like pointing out when the writers are in the show as well, she was with Dwight's posse in the finale. So C.R.I.M.E. aired originally on October 23rd, 2008, was viewed by 7.74 million people, and currently has an 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb. And your C.R.I.M.E. trivia is, what is the name of Hank's blues album?
Me and the blues.
And as always, I run these comment contests in these videos. Answer the trivia first, spot out the Easter egg, and or leave the best emoji sequence summing up next week's episode, and you'll get your name in next week's video. All right, we got a lot to talk about for this episode, including a deeper meaning that I really enjoyed, but also a weird conspiracy theory that I'm gonna get to here in just a minute. As always, there may be spoilers ahead for the series, so be warned.
Warning!
All right, and with that, let's do it.
I understand nothing.
Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is that weird conspiracy thing. There's this weird connection that I don't think I ever noticed before. This guy is the same as this guy from Benihana Christmas, who I think I called the worst person ever in that episode.
This couple is awful.
And you might say, no, Chris, that's a different guy. But it's not. I looked it up, and he's the same actor who's actually in 2 more episodes of The Office. He's also credited as the same character throughout, and the character's name is Justin Spitzer. And if that sounds familiar, it's because Justin Spitzer is a writer for the series, who started in season 3, and also made an appearance on the show, not as Justin Spitzer, but as this nurse.
So that is where her uterus went.
So I'm sure there's a conspiracy theorist that's better than me that could come up with some mystical reason why this dude keeps popping up across the series. Leave it in the comments. I want to hear the best conspiracy theories about this guy. Okay, so back to C.R.I.M.E. There's a few things that I just wanted to call out from this episode real quick. To me, this is when Hank becomes a legend. I love so much about this bit, from the off-key singing to the reaction shots of everyone being forced to sit there and listen while they're waiting for their Springsteen tickets. Am I weird for not being a Springsteen fan? I literally sat here and wrote this episode, listened to Springsteen for hours. Not my cup of tea. But I feel like this is an example of The Office writing where it's chasing a bit rather than sticking to the realism that was present in the early show. Almost all of these people know that Michael just doesn't come through on his promises. Yet most of them seem to really think that these tickets are real. Except Jim and Daryl, who I think they figured that out real quick.
$5. Sold to Jim.
Okay, oh!
When I interviewed Robert Schaefer last year, he mentioned that this episode was one of his favorites to be a part of. And I couldn't imagine what it would have been like to be an extra just sitting there in this audience.
Sold for $300 to me! The hell's that?
It's the only gavel I could find.
It squeaks when you bang it. That's what she said.
I always love this microphone joke though. It gets me every time.
Okay, all right. Okay, you know what? I would appreciate it if people would stop storming off the stage.
It reminds me of this bit from Community.
Let's maybe not drop the $50 mics, okay, guys?
But back to the writing. Beyond why they thought Michael actually had these tickets in the first place, I don't really understand why this auction is happening at all.
To recoup their losses, I am planning a little charity auction.
Maybe I'm wrong, but wouldn't mostly company equipment be taken? Yet it seems that Michael and Holly are aiming to pay individuals back. Like, are we to believe that Oscar paid for his own work laptop? Or weirder, does he leave his personal laptop at the office? I mean, I guess it's not impossible, but it just seems weird.
Oscar, I'm now going to be prone to surges.
That this much money actually went missing. And I guess now that I'm looking at that, how have I never noticed that the thermometer tops out at $1 million? And their goal is actually way down here. So all of this led me to go read an interview from Grandy. He mentioned that all of this was a plot point that was just excluded for time. That he originally had the idea that there was going to be a $5,000 deductible for personal items, but they didn't get that much stolen. But I guess that means that this goal line is at 5,000, and I don't really understand the scale of this thing, but whatever, I can get lost in details like that all day. Also in that interview, I read that there were a few deleted scenes, one with the drunken Meredith auctioning off something that can't quite be made out because she's slurring so badly. Oscar buys it for $1, and it ends up being a new iPhone. And the other thing is that Kelly's auctioning off a dance lesson for $40. Ryan ends up buying it, and she plans to seduce him but not sleep with him, just to try to torture him. Which does explain her outfit. Okay, and other things, I always love this joke.
I never felt safe here.
You're always safe with me. I'm a very good screamer.
And he's got one part of Toby's self-defense down.
Strike, scream, and run. All right, let's try it.
And Jim is so awkward.
She's engaged. To me.
But I think this handshake is crazy awkward. Who shakes hands like this?
Oh, thanks, man.
And I guess that maybe I'm too Midwestern, but who eats dinner at 8 p.m. on a weeknight? That's bonkers.
Reservations are date, so we've got like an hour and 45 minutes.
And also, I'm just gonna throw this out here too. This is maybe the most real grown-up portrayal of sex I've ever seen on TV.
Are we, do you think? Do you think we're gonna have sex tonight?
Hell yeah.
And I love Michael's logic here.
Probably get soup or something light.
And lastly, go to Wikipedia and search for office robbery statistics. It's great.
Because there is no Wikipedia entry for office robbery statistics.
And let's dive into the deeper meaning. There's plenty of meat there.
What does a bean mean?
Someone please explain it to Kevin.
All right, I'm just gonna say that the thesis of this episode is consequences. Just a few to mention from the 22-minute runtime. This entire episode, Michael and Holly are dealing with leaving the doors unlocked.
So much for sex without consequences.
Obviously high from their escapades in the stairwell.
Remember what I tried there?
Michael.
Dwight's still dealing with hurt he dealt Angela in season 3. And I've always appreciated how spot on Phyllis's analysis of Angela is.
Angela's not really a risk taker, and Andy's not really a risk.
And this advice seems pretty solid towards Angela, a person Phyllis is currently blackmailing for political power that is the party planning committee lead. But speaking of Phyllis, she has to deal with the consequences of stepping into this love triangle.
Why couldn't you have just said it? Why did you actually do it?
And really, she's dealing with more than just that. She's receiving consequences of choosing a spouse who absolutely treasures her.
Solve $1,000!
Ryan's dealing with the consequences from his past, and I'm sure there's more. Maybe there's a way that Springsteen actually fits into this. I'm not really sure, leave it in the comments if you know. But the point being made is that we all make our beds, and we have to sleep in it, for better or worse. It's something that for some reason every one of us tend to forget. We think that we're above the rules, and that we can do what we want, and there wouldn't be any consequences. People call this different things, like divine intervention, or the universe, or karma, or just human nature. Call it what you want, but the bill always comes due.
The bill comes due.
One thing's for sure, when Holly's bill came due, she dropped the goody two-shoes thing we saw in business ethics, and kept her mistake quiet. But who knows, actually, the bill may have come due for her. This episode ends on this low note with David Wallace spotting out their flourishing relationship, and you could see the wheels turning in his head. And it's interesting also how this episode plays out with Jim and Pam.
I mean, last night she was out with her friends till like 8 a.m.
Wow.
What?
I mean, you were a friend.
You hear the phrase, once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't buy that, but this sequence is really interesting to me. I think the storybook version of this plays out with Jim never skipping a beat and going about the rest of his night. Instead, we get this glimpse that there might be a little worry in Jim's mind, but then he catches himself simply by remembering who they are and what their relationship is about.
No. You know what? No, because I'm not that guy. And we are not that couple.
It shows that it's probably a good thing to consider what your actions are going to do to your life or your relationship. Surely he's considering right here what going down this road would literally do to his relationship. And I think this Jim-Pam thing is a microcosm that applies to this entire episode as a whole. Even when we've made mistakes in the past, when people bind together, there's hope to overcome those things, deal with those consequences, and move on. Which is a cool thought. So with that, let's rate this thing.
This is the worst!
Okay, the cold opening, now that I think of it, does play somewhat into the deeper meaning of this episode by showing Michael really does cherish Pam. And it's kind of cool to see that their relationship changed from maybe this romantic thing in Michael's mind at least, to an older brother, sister kind of thing, or father, daughter. I don't, you know what I mean. It's completely platonic and still this cool thing. I think it's a sign that Michael's growing and that Holly probably is the catalyst for that. It reinforces this whole bill comes due thing. But I mean, tie into the deeper meaning is one thing. Overall, this really isn't that good of a cold opening. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. If I ranked every cold opening, I can't imagine that this would be any higher than like 132 out of 201. That's really specific. I probably should remember this. Anyway, I think this episode has a lot going for it. I think I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. When I rate things, I think about them from a technical point of view and also how it makes me feel. This one gives me the feels, and it's the sweetness of the bidding war over Phyllis's hug and the internal cheers I feel when Jim does his turnaround. I did knock off a bit as this episode does genuinely lack something that would make this episode a capstone to the series. Something that's like truly memorable.
Or you can say goodbye to this.
And it just doesn't land. And like I said, I think the writing could have been tweaked a little bit to actually root this thing in reality rather than just making the characters do things that are funny. It is funny. I mean, there's lots of funny stuff in this. All up, this is way better an episode than I originally thought I was gonna give it credit for. Sometimes I talk myself into higher scores. I wonder if I should be more cynical. Would that get more views if I just trashed every episode?
It's not worth it.
I don't know. I'm me. You're watching this. Thank you so much. But that's just what I think about this episode. What do you think? And don't forget about the comment contest. If you want to chat with the fans of the channel or fans of The Office in general, then hop on our Discord. The link's in the description. It's pretty cool, and that's coming from someone who's literally never been in a Discord in my life. We're planning on some live events coming up soon, so if you want to join that, that's cool. If not, don't worry about it. I also have I keep getting more stuff to give away, so we'll do contest or something on there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.